everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. The topic for this webinar will be finding clarity in your data with observability, monitoring, and reporting. My name is Casey Dixon, and I am a sales engineer here at Bigeye. For those of you who aren't familiar with Bigeye, we are a data observability software company with a pretty lofty mission to empower data teams in enterprise organizations to make sure every business user can feel trust in their analytics. Because when businesses don't trust analytics anymore, thoughtful, data-driven decisions are endangered. In fact, they're impossible. So as part of our commitment to delivering on our mission, we spend a lot of time talking with customers, data teams, data ops folks, data engineers, governance teams, stewards, business analysts. And there are some common threads in what we hear. The first is that understanding the realities of data is difficult because the views are fragmented and the tooling is, let's say, diverse. There are so many places to find information, and different reports and visualizations and views rarely tell the same story. The second is that viewing a snippet of data without historical context does not get the job done. How can I look at a data point in isolation and understand if it's good, bad, normal, expected, aberrant, in line with trending, or completely out of range? Historical context is really critical. The third thing we often hear is that given the difficulty of establishing reliable data quality engines across disparate pipelines, every report and dashboard is viewed through a lens of doubt and skepticism to some extent. It's like a math student providing an answer but not showing their work. It raises some eyebrows. The last common thread is that attempts to get on top of this have resulted in a constellation of unit tests that create so much noise, and it's hard to actually find and prioritize the pressing problems. Sometimes finding a data issue looks something like this. An operations executive looks at a critical dashboard while they sip their morning coffee. And although they can't see the whole pipeline feeding it, they just know in their heart that something here is off. Their expertise in business and historical grasp of the data tell them that what they're seeing isn't likely reflective of the truth. Something's off here. They message a data engineer, a technical person whose job is to build and manage pipelines, but who doesn't perhaps have the same instincts and intimacy with the business data. And that person, of course, jumps in to have a look, but it's just not that easy. Data flows through so many layers of the pipeline. Any given table, for example, contains so many different data types. It undergoes transformations and cleansing and reshaping, and it's combined with other data sets, augmented and enriched, separated and segmented, all before it populates a dashboard. Now, an expensive, critical resource is spending their whole day as an investigative journalist, making calls, firing off questions. Before you know it, this gut instinct has a half dozen people looking for a needle in a haystack. And the day is sailing by. When the VP of Ops checks in later, they're shocked to learn that the problem still hasn't been found and fixed. How is this possible? Their own confidence is shaken. Finally, at meeting time, the organizational mistrust grows further when the meeting has to be canceled while a sheepish Ops VP says there was an analytics outage. It's under investigation. No information to offer. No SLA. It's a huge drag, and incidents like these are not infrequent whatsoever. The result is enormous in terms of morale and confidence. Our organization is making critical decisions on data we're not sure we trust, and certainly don't seem to have a good handle on. What a downer. Until the organization brings on an observability platform like Bigeye. Through our work with enterprise customers, we have come to trust the gut instincts of the people who work closely with data and know it best, which is why we have incorporated data quality reporting in a way that guides every decision. Building for the enterprise is what we do here. So when we heard that finding the root cause of pipeline problems was the most time-consuming thing, we built out best-in-class lineage for the purpose of finding problems early. We use historical context when determining what in our data constitutes an anomaly, because these things aren't black and white. They need to be considered against similar periods of time, last week, last season, last year, current events, market conditions. And although we love our UI, we know that enterprise data teams need tools that help them scale out this practice, embedded into their existing workflows, and version control it. Finally, the volume of data at our fingertips is exploding. I just read that 2.5 quintillion bytes of data are generated every day. I didn't even know quintillion was a thing. That is so much data. Some of you may have seen that recently Bigeye has rolled out a new product functionality called Scorecards that draws from the wisdom that data people run on instincts. They trust, but they verify. And by verify, I mean that everything that they think they know about data is constantly being validated, considered in context. Better than waiting for a VP's gut instinct to say, something's off here in my dashboard, what if the folks handling the data at every intermediate step could log into Bigeye, click on a data source, and see a clear summary of the metrics that are unhealthy and posing risk to their downstream reports? What if the VP themselves could log in and see a summary of every data source from highest grain, like schema or source, all the way down to the field level? They could see which metrics were performing poorly and which fields didn't even have enough metrics to inspire confidence. They could see which dimensions of data quality monitoring have been tackled and which ones didn't even have a single metric to instill organizational confidence. That's the power of scorecards. So let's try this again. This time, every data platform in the pipeline has monitoring, which is aggregated into a single view in Bigeye. When that same VP sips her coffee and gets that familiar feeling that something is off, she's delighted to see that the data engineering manager is already aware and has the team working on the problem. This proactive approach, supported by real-time alerting and enterprise ticketing in systems like Slack and Jira, get all the right people informed. They get the right remediators involved. Updates are clear and visible. That oh feeling is replaced by one that we know where our problems are and we fix them before they screw us. Big difference, right? And I mean it. Bigeye arms data teams with a platform built for everyone to stay on top of this thing. We have a lineage for finding the root source of problems. Bigeye provides debug queries for isolating problematic data for remediation, and easy to access reports that show precisely which data sets are bogged down with poor quality and failed metrics. Now this loop can take minutes, not hours. So keep that 4:30 meeting. We got this. Now comes the part I love best. Let's hop into the platform and see it in action. Imagine I'm that VP of ops and I log in and I'm drinking my coffee and something's not right here and I can feel it in my gut. My order count and my average price per unit are tanking in unison. Something's just not right. Let's take a look here at what Bigeye is able to summarize about the quality of my data based on monitors in place. And I'm viewing this side by side with my report because Bigeye enables a browser extension that allows me to see some critical data points about my data quality monitoring. First of all, the coverage is mediocre at best. 71% of the possible coverage for data that feeds this visualization, this dashboard, are in place. That's not great. There's definitely still some opportunity to enhance my monitoring. And among the monitors that I've deployed, the data's not that healthy. 68%, 41 out of 60 total metrics deployed are in good health. That is not confidence inspiring. The next thing I see here is that the data that's driving this dashboard has some pretty known issues and some gaps. For example, there are unexpected nulls, there are bad or unhealthy value distributions, and we haven't even scratched the surface with business informed metrics, custom monitoring, referential integrity checks, cross column validations. All we have so far is out of the box metrics. So there's a lot of room for improvement here. Finally, down below, I can see some of the issues that are known and others that haven't even been touched. For example, I can see that there are no problems related to pipeline, meaning that freshness and volume seem to be healthy for all the data sets that are in the pipeline of this dashboard. But there are a lot of data quality problems. 4 of them are being looked at, 8 of them are perhaps solved and waiting for the data to return to good health, but 7 haven't even been picked up yet. Let's go ahead and learn a little bit more about these issues. And I'm going to follow this hyperlink right into the platform and group them by that issue status. Now, when I do that, I can see a lot of charts and graphs that look like they tell a similar story. I'm able to see the issues that are known sorted by issue status. And what I observe is that something seems to be happening that's probably related. Minimum price per unit is showing a major drop off from a very consistent value. And that also looks to be pulling down my average price per unit. And these are really important metrics because these keep me aware of the health of our dynamic pricing model. If we're giving away products for too little money, we're really cutting into our margins, and that's something that needs to be fixed immediately. So what I'm going to do is take a dive into this issue, see what's going on, make sure the right eyes are on it. When I click into this issue, I'm able to verify what it looked like from that little version of the graph. We were selling products for a very minimum of about $3.99, $4. That was true for a long time throughout the summer, you can see. All of a sudden, our metrics ran overnight, and for one reason or another, we observed a value of 4 cents per unit per product. Super unusual. So there's a couple things that I'd like to do at this point. One is already actually taken care of for me, which is that I would like to open up an external ticket, but we've actually set Bigeye to do that automatically so that the data engineering team can get involved. And they tend to work through Jira. So this is how I get their attention. Let's take a look at it. This provides all the critical information and it gives them the opportunity to disposition it right from Jira, which is awesome. In fact, I can already see that Daniel has been assigned to this issue. I'm going to change roles now and play the part of Daniel. And we're going to take a look together at what tools are available for Daniel to find the root cause, start to hypothesize what could be wrong with the data, keep me updated of the status of his investigation, and ultimately fix the data and provide feedback to the system in a way that makes it smarter and more prepared for the next data emergency. Now, just imagine I'm not me, but instead I'm Daniel. I can see that something is going on in a field called price per unit. It doesn't mean a super ton to me, but that's okay because Bigeye is going to provide so much useful context. So the very first thing I'd love to do is to acknowledge that I'm working this problem so that my teammates don't. Now I'm able to see exactly what Casey saw, that we had this minimum price per unit that was super stable over a long period of time and then precipitously dropped. There's a couple tools that are going to draw my attention first in my investigation. And the first of those can be found here under the Lineage tab. The Lineage tab is going to allow me to understand the context of this issue in terms of pipeline. Where did it happen? Is this the first place it happened? Is it happening way downstream? And in fact, I need to go ahead and fix it at the root. Well, luckily for me, this appears to be happening at the very first stage of our data pipeline in our transactional Postgres system, which is actually kind of great. However, if I filter down to the alerting path of this field, I can see that it moves all the way through my pipeline and ultimately impacts some pretty critical reports. In other words, this is a problem with really long legs. So now I'm aware that I'm fixing it at the right place, but the urgency is even higher. Let's use another tool that's available to me called the Debug tab. The Debug tab will show me how Bigeye issued that metric against the source system, but perhaps more helpfully, it will invert that metric to show me exactly what the records that are impacted look like. What are the records where that observed value dipped out of range? And in fact, I have the option to preview that record level data. I'll totally mention, because I'd get in trouble if I didn't, we're not storing this. You don't want us to store your data. We don't want to store your data. We're streaming this into short-held browser cache, but it has a lot of benefits for a well-trained eye or an analytic mind or somebody who's a little bit familiar with this data. The first question that I had when I saw that we were giving away product for 4 cents, or in some cases 20 or 15 or 13 cents, was, we just mispriced something. It happens all the time. Now I have the opportunity to look at a couple of records and start to troubleshoot my theories. The first one, we mispriced an item. Well, if I look at the column product type, there's a lot of different values there. We didn't just misprice one item, we mispriced potentially a lot of items, which seems unlikely. Next thing I think of, oh great, some employee on their way out of the company gave themselves the old 99% discount. How nice for them. But actually, that doesn't look like the case either. There are so many different customer IDs. This impacted many different orders. So it's extremely unlikely that this is a bad actor, although perhaps it could be a wrongly issued coupon or discount code. That's still a possibility. Another theory, and something that I've actually seen with my own eyes, is problems that happen at the point of sale or perhaps at the credit card processing step. So maybe this is an issue where Visa or MasterCard, let's say, transposed a decimal, and instead of charging $20, they accidentally charged 20 cents. It could happen. In fact, it's happened before. But that's not the case either. All kinds of payment IDs are represented in this data. So I'm looking for something that looks trendy, and I find it here in the shipping state column. It's not immediately clear to me what this means, but all of these records share a shipping state of New Mexico. Now, because I know the data and the operations of my e-commerce company, I have a couple new theories. One is that maybe this isn't a global outage. Maybe somehow our pricing model went down in this state or maybe the Southwest region, and we accidentally charged customers the wrong amount. We definitely have to fix that. So the first thing that I would do is I would grab this really helpful debug query, copy it to my clipboard, and ship that off to the team that manages our transactional system with a note like, hey guys, you might have to look into this a little bit further. I suspect we're going to have to issue some refunds and recharge these customers. These charges just don't look right. The next thing I'm going to do is start to use this great point and click observability tool to test my theory and ensure that what looks like a problem isolated to New Mexico is just that. Okay, let's get to it. Here in my catalog, I'm going to navigate to my transactional system. Bigeye is going to give me kind of an overview of the quality of this data historically. And the first thing that I notice is that we just don't have enough monitoring in place. And this is a real opportunity to enhance our data quality monitoring. But I have a mission here to monitor the data in a very specific way that allows me to deploy numeric distribution monitors with a group by operation. breaking the data out by all the states that we operate in. Let's see what this looks like. When I choose the metrics I want to deploy, I'm able to select the price per unit column or any other columns that are relevant. In this case, I'm on a targeted mission. I want to find out what's happening with this particular field. Bigeye has bundled up the best recommendations for how to configure this metric, and we could talk about that in a separate session or a follow-up conversation if you're interested. But the most important things here are that I'm going to take advantage of Bigeye's Smart Auto Threshold, which looks at data historically and helps cast a range of values that would be typical or expected based on historical performance. So let's get to that orders table where I know that this price per unit field lives. I'm going to add some monitoring, and the kinds of monitors that I'm going to deploy have to do with numeric distributions, specifically average, min, and max price per unit. I'm going to select the column that I'm looking into, which is, of course, price per unit. And now Bigeye is going to give me a couple of critical options. One is, what kind of threshold do I want to use? And I definitely want to take advantage of Bigeye's auto threshold here, which uses historical data to train an individual machine learning model for this particular metric. It's going to allow me to understand what's an anomaly without waiting 3 weeks or 3 months for Bigeye to have enough data points, because it's going to pull in some historical data and use that to make the model smart from day one. But the critical thing that I want to do here that makes this different from the metrics already in place is to add this group by. I want to split out this metric according to every state that we do business in. In other words, I'm going to deploy average, min, and max price per unit for every state that we do business in. I'm going to click next, make myself the owner of this metric and therefore the owner of any problems that arise from it, and add it to a collection of metrics where I'm tracking similar type issues. Let's go ahead and let this guy run. Now, when I look at the result, my suspicion is pretty clearly correct. We do business in 17 states, and even this summary here will tell me this metric is grouped by shipping state. One of the 17 groups are alerting. Sure enough, that first state where there are aberrations or abnormalities or anomalies is New Mexico. As I scroll down, I can see, although there's some variation in the average or the minimum price per unit for Vermont and Tennessee, they're all within range. Oklahoma looks good, Maryland looks good, and so on and so forth. So I think I have really identified exactly the source of the problem. Not sure what caused it, but the good news is that I sent that debug query to the folks who can fix this, and they're already on it. Great news. Couple last things I'll do here. I'm going to put this into a monitoring state so that I can keep Casey aware of the status of my investigation. This is where I have an opportunity to provide Bigeye with some feedback about whether this was in fact a true anomaly or not. This in turn helps inform how Bigeye will continuously train its machine learning models. And this was in fact an anomaly. Something weird happened where we charged folks way too little money for the products that they bought. We're going to maintain that threshold. The last thing I'll do is add a little bit of text here to the comment field so that when we do a retrospective on this issue, we know exactly what was going on. This also is visible to Casey so that she can stay aware. I'm going to go ahead and save that out. And finally, I'm going to post this comment to the timeline as well. Hey guys, me, Casey again. I kind of sound like Daniel, don't I? Anyhow, I've seen some updates on the issue that I was tracking, which is really helpful because I have a pretty good sense of what went wrong and it seems like it's already being fixed. Now, I'm going to use some reporting in Bigeye to instill confidence in myself and the team I'm meeting at 4:30 that this was an isolated problem that was found, fixed, and remedied. Let's do it. Here, I'm going to navigate to my Snowflake warehouse, which is actually where all of the reports are built off of. This is the last stage in the pipeline that my reports draw from. And when I click on that prod warehouse, In fact, that orders table, I'm brought to a scorecard view, which lets me see how this data has performed historically. You can see for a while, we weren't even monitoring it. But over the last 90 days, we've had generally healthy data, with some exceptions, usually having to do with numeric distributions, where issues were opened. That is no different than what we saw today. Things were pretty healthy for the last few days. We got to yesterday. Overnight, we had a bad metric run where we had some problems with distributions, but we have since rerun that metric and it's back to health. That's great news. I feel super confident going into my meeting today that I can trust the analytics in my dashboard. While I'm here, I'm starting to think this is a really good practice. And there is actually a new dashboard that just went live. And I think that there's a real opportunity to use Bigeye to add some monitoring and really instill confidence that this new dashboard provides critical information. Let's get to it. Let's go ahead and add some monitors to that report. Here, I'm going to go to the Lineage tab. I'm going to search for that new report, and here, I've found it. A new dashboard that we created tracking metrics around our cost to acquire customers can now benefit from the monitors that Bigeye provides for, and I can deploy them easily just by starting at this report and deploying metrics backwards to my dashboard. Bigeye's made it really easy for folks like me who don't think about data in terms of pipelines to, with a couple of clicks, get reassurance that all of the tables at all of the stages of the pipeline that ultimately impact my critical reports that my credibility lies on are healthy, contain appropriate data, good numeric distributions, valid formats, that the ID columns are unique and complete, you name it. And it's this auto metrics bundle that helps me feel that security. I hope this demo gave you some confidence in the possibility of positive outcomes like reducing risk, specifically the likelihood that bad data will have a negative impact on your business. Optimizing data teams, creating efficiency, and saving valuable time and resources while data teams fight fires. Driving data adoption. Because of organizational trust, now everyone wants to leverage data for better business decision making. After all, acquiring, storing, and managing data isn't cheap. So what's the point if it doesn't make us smarter and more proactive? We believe here at Bigeye that the number one thing you can do to enhance the ROI on data initiatives is to ensure high quality data. And this was certainly echoed by one of our favorite customers, Zoom, who have been on the data observability journey with us for the last few years. Zoom struggled with the constant game of telephone, where stakeholders were making calls to try and find out why their data didn't look right. Manual methods were really hard to maintain. The process took a long time, and sometimes even longer because adding in that historical context to the problem solving was onerous and expensive. They started small by saying the first thing we need is to ensure our pipes are moving. And they deployed freshness and volume monitors across their entire data stack. As they identified and remediated pipeline reliability issues, they had more time to tackle data quality monitoring on critical tables and then scaled this out with Bigeye's CLI and BigConfig offering. Again, if you're interested, we'll follow up after the call. The results are astounding. It's literally the difference between proactive and reactive. Now they report 2 to 3 issues monthly that are completely bypassed because they have excellent pipeline and quality monitoring. And their time to resolve issues is down 70%. If you're interested to learn more about Zoom's approach to deploying Bigeye for improving organizational trust and analytics, check out our website where you'll find our published case study. All right, that does it for me today. Thanks for spending some time with me. And if you have any questions or would like to continue the conversation and talk data, please scan the QR code and book a follow-up. Have a super day. Go out into the world today and try to find something else that exists in the volume of quintillions. That's going to be my challenge for today anyway. Thank you so much.